What's the craziest thing you've heard someone say after they thought the phone call had ended, but they forgot to hang up? Look forward to new Reddit videos every single day. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Hey, you might as well. It's free. This wasn't a phone call, but happened as I was leaving a potential rental. I was looking for a place to rent. Met the property manager and she walked me to the unit. It wasn't the best neighborhood, and my mind was already made up as I was walking around the property with her that I wasn't going to go through with it. But the lady was very nice and friendly, and I figured I'd at least take a look inside the unit. It was small and dingy. I looked around and told her nicely that I'd think about it, and then walked out. After the door closed, I could hear her screaming, "No, you fricking won't. Frick. Oh, I'll think about it and let you know. Ah, frick." Certainly glad I did not rent. I once worked as a secretary in an office that, for some reason, got butt dialed a lot. During one such occasion, I got to listen in while some gentleman from New York absolutely roasted one of his employees. Well, what the frick do you expect me to do? Honestly, Tom, honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm effing your sister, your ass would be out of here right now. I was the third party in this. A co-worker failed to hang up properly after a conversation with the boss, and promptly went on a very creative expletive-laden rant about the boss, and what he should do with himself. As this went on, I received a text from the boss, suggesting I should inform the co-worker that she'd not hung up. I got co-worker's attention, and told them they hadn't hung up. Still in expletive mode, I was asked what made me think that. My response was, I got a text from boss. First time I ever saw color literally drain from someone's face. Friend called me for a quick question, followed by an ass exploding in a toilet, before he hung up. Was not the type of friend to do that sort of thing, so it was hilarious. I have a discount digestive system, and I take a lot of work calls while on the toilet. Usually I'm pretty good at muting the mic on my phone at the right time. However, one time I lost all control while talking to someone. Luckily, they found it hilarious. I was troubleshooting a problem with them, and he goes, "Looks like we're both having issues." That's one of the many memories that keep me up at night. Business conference call. The other side had asked some pretty stupid questions, but was still poised to do over $1 million worth of business with us. Thinking the call had ended, one guy in the room started calling them freaking idiots, and talking about how what they were trying to do was never going to work, etc. They didn't say anything else, but we all heard the sound of the other side disconnecting, and they later reached out and said they were going to go in another direction. What happened to that guy? He was fired from that position, and now has his own company in the same industry. I think he's doing just fine. Honesty is the best policy. I work at a children's hospital, and anything serious like a code blue is called out hospital-wide over the loudspeakers by dialing a specific phone extension. There's been a few times where someone hit the hold button instead of end call, and the whole hospital gets to listen to the hold music until someone catches it. The worst or funniest though, was a couple weeks ago. Every single employee, parent, and child in my world-renowned children's hospital heard this poor guy scream, "Frick," when he realized he was still on. I was FaceTiming my parents shortly after I started dating my now wife. I'd had quite a dry spell and hadn't dated anyone for a couple years, so I mentioned we were dating on the call, and they were happy for me. We ended it, and I just put my phone down to grab something without ending the call. Apparently, my mom did too, because after a few seconds I heard her say, "Well, I'm glad he's having sex now." Awkward, but also I'm glad my mom is looking out for me. I heard the opposite from mine. It was, "She'll leave him in a few months." I got back on the phone, played it cool, and was preparing for an opening to give her an earful, and before I could, I got, "So when you making me a grandma?" Phone dropped the call after that. Did your mom just imply you should get your girlfriend pregnant so she won't leave you? Damn, wannabe grandma. Stupid frick fell for it. This, from a student's parent, while I was excusing their kid from an assignment they missed because their grandmother just died. She hadn't. Still, the kid wouldn't pass the class under any circumstances. because he was a complete knob. Once I talked to his parents, I knew why. So he still failed the class, even without the assignment. So I know one of us was the stupid frick. Just not sure it's the same person they think it is. My brother-in-law got a friendly reminder that the company can still hear him even when he puts the customer on hold. This was because he was taking a big bong rip while waiting on the customer. Grandma left me a voicemail asking for my help with stuff on her computer. She thought she hung up but she didn't, and I hear her call me a freaking bitch. Haven't really talked to her since. Maybe she was talking to the computer? That's my initial reaction too, but then I think she would know. She'd be able to tell. Freaking hell. From your grandma. Out of all people. That must have hurt. I worked in sales, inbound call, and had a pleasant conversation with a customer who politely declined the offer and told me she was going to look elsewhere. We said our goodbyes. Nothing out of the ordinary. Really sweet lady had called in with her husband. As soon as she thought she hung up, she slammed her phone down and starts yelling at her husband. F. Company name. Are you freaking shitting me right now? $350 a freaking year? I'm not paying that much for this goddamn piece of shit product. How the frick could that bitch pitch that with a straight freaking face? I gave her the decency of hanging up myself after that, but she was 100% in the right being pissed. Haha, I respect that. She was pissed, but vented about it to her husband instead of taking it out on you. I wish more people chose that route. I have a not muted story. WebEx. 500 people on the call, right when everyone was getting used to working remotely. Whoever set it up didn't mute the audience by default. The chaos was amazing. Dozens of people simultaneously unmuted and going about their lives. Dogs barking, kids crying, kitchen utensils clanging, the call leaders pleading for people to mute themselves. My favorite part was when they had things mostly quiet. About 5 people were still unmuted, including one guy who thought he was muted, who yelled, "Jesus freaking Christ people, mute your freaking phones," before realizing he was not on mute. They threw in the towel and ended the 1.5-hour meeting after 15 minutes. I once sat in on a similar call with hundreds of people in government. Someone sat down, loudly sighed and said, "Great, this will be a giant freaking waste of 2 hours," seconds before the speaker opened the meeting. I had a job where I was in a position to write off a substantial phone bill, which the customer said was because her mother was dying overseas, and she had dementia and needed to hear things in her voice to believe anything, including doctor's instructions. She was heartbroken and sobbing about how if she had the kind of money to pay this phone bill, she would have just gone back to her country, because the flight would have cost less. She was right about that. I wrote off the entirety of the phone bill. She cried like a jilted lover in a rom-com, and said people like me are angels from God, etc. After I wished her a good evening and she thought the call was ended, she says to someone in a perfectly normal voice, "Well, that worked." Not a crazy story, but I had just finished talking to a client over the phone. We say our goodbyes, then I hear her ask, "Are you wearing pants today?" I wasn't sure how to answer that, but I figure she was jokingly asking because everyone just started working from home due to COVID. I just replied, "Yes." She then burst out laughing, trying to explain that she thought she had already hung up, and she was actually asking her husband that question. We laughed about it for about 3 minutes before we actually hung up. This is my favorite answer. So wholesome.